What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the Total Takedown, where we are talking overs and unders for UFC Vegas 52. If you want the full card breakdowns, of course, check out Pub Sports Radio, my full card breakdown every single Monday over there. Lines are presented to you by Superbook Sports. Let's go ahead and talk some totals here. First fight of the night, Dean Barry taking on Mike Jackson, and who the hell knows? Like this entire card, folks, is a complete mess. I am going to have a very difficult time, and honestly, maybe one of the fewest bet cards I've had in the history since I started doing the dang podcast, because there's just a lot of questions here. So the total for this one looks like it's set at 1.5 right now. Over 1.5 minus 105. Under 1.5 is minus 125. And basically what we're seeing is that Dean Barry should just run through Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson 0-1. He got the win in the UFC, but it got taken away because of marijuana. So should really be 1-1. Dean Barry 4-1, making his debut, but he's a smaller guy. Shouldn't really be competing at 170. Like this, the whole thing is just wild. I'm going to say over 1.5. I mean, skill for skill, Dean Barry probably just absolutely wipes Montel Jackson, as the betting line would suggest. However, Montel Jackson does have some grappling chops. He's decent on the ground. He's okay striking. So, I mean, unless we expect Dean Barry to just... people do just expect Dean Barry to steamroll through this guy. I think Montel Jackson can at least put up a bit of a fight, be defensive at least in this fight, if nothing else. I say we'll go over 1.5, but there is zero confidence behind that pick. Next up, Marcin Prachnio taking on Philippe Lins. We have another total set at 1.5. Overs minus 150. Under 1.5 is plus 120. And I'm a little surprised that we're getting juiced to the over here. We see low-level heavyweights. We've seen these over spots hit where these guys, there's a little bit more respect, even though they're big hitters. They slow it down. They don't want to get themselves hurt, so it takes a bit longer for that knockout to come. I don't really see that taking place in this spot, though, because Philippe Lins is a heavyweight coming down to 205. Marcin Prachnio, he's got those chin concerns. I know the last couple fights he's looked much, much better, but he got hurt badly in his last fight against Villanueva. It would have taken just one more good one to put him down. I think Lins is going to get him out of there, and in a hurry. And the thing with Lins is, he's not very good either. And we've seen he struggled in the UFC at this level. Someone like Andrei Arlovsky wasn't able to just get him out of there, but Andre doesn't finish anybody these days. Somebody like Marcin Prachnio, the way he goes to the body, those leg kicks that he fires off, I think if Lins doesn't get Prachnio out of there early, then I think Prachnio is going to return the favor. And I don't see this fight lasting long. I don't think either of these guys are durable enough to pull that off. So I think violence at the under 1.5 spot, plus 120, that's the way I'd be looking for that fight. Preston Parsons taking on Evan Elder. What we have for this one is I'm sorry, I don't have this fight listed right here. This is a short notice fill-in. Apologies. No lines for that one at this point, and I haven't even looked into it. That must be a very recent addition to this card. I'm not familiar whatsoever with this one, so no words for me on that one. Aori Quilang taking on Cameron Else. Total set at 1.5 for this one. Over 1.5 minus 140. Under 1.5 is plus 120. And again, I would probably lean towards violence on this one. What we've seen from Cameron Else so far is that he's a round one or bust fighter. He either destroys people early or he gives it up himself shortly thereafter. Now, from what I understand, Aori Quilang is moving up a weight class to take on Cameron Else. We're still not 1,000% certain on that. It was Cameron Else's interview with James Lynch where he talked about that. If Cameron Else is the one going down, I don't know if he can make that cut. I don't think it's possible for him to get down a weight class, but either way, Aori's a guy that really blocks punches with his face, so I expect someone to be able to knock him out eventually. It's gonna happen, but if he survives what Cameron Else is offering offensively, then Else has shown that he folds over defensively. I think one of these guys can get the finish. Both fighters definitely have finishing upside. Both can be finished, so under 1.5, plus 120, I'd be looking violence yet again. Tyson Pedro taking on Ike Villanueva for the next one here. And we have another 1.5 total. We're expecting violence all day on this card, folks. Over 1.5 plus 160. Under 1.5 is minus 200. And I would agree with that under 1.5 simply because that's kind of the way Ike fights. He plods forward. He looks to swing heavies. He wants to trade big bombs with you. And if you're willing to get into a slugfest with him, he either knocks you out or gets knocked out himself. That's just the way the guy plays. The question here is Tyson Pedro. What kind of Tyson Pedro are we getting? He's had a long layoff, but this is a guy with some serious offensive upside. So if he looks anything like the Tyson Pedro we saw before his break, he should come out like a bat out of hell, and we probably see this under cash. Now, maybe these guys are both a little more tentative. Maybe Ike coming off a bad knockout loss is tentative. Maybe Tyson Pedro coming after the long layoff is tentative, and it squeezes over 1.5. Another total I'm really not confident in whatsoever. I do expect violence. Someone's going to get finished here. I'm just not sure. I probably wouldn't lay minus 200 on it, but it should go under. Dwight Grant taking on Sergey Kondoshko. We've got a 2.5 for this one. Over 2.5 is minus 170. Under 2.5 is plus 140. And I would tend to agree with the over on this one. Lay the juice. Sergey Kondoshko is another one-punch type of guy. He's doesn't really set things up, doesn't really flow, doesn't strike in combinations. So with a guy like Dwight Grant, you could be looking at these guys. Someone gets rocked and hurt, and then it just is done from there, like in Dwight Grant's last fight. That can happen at any point in time. But we're probably going to get more of a staring contest. These guys both probably sit just out of range and try and pop each other once or twice, see who can land the bigger, better shot, and both of them manage to stay out of range of the other one. I can see this actually being a very dull, slow-paced fight that grinds its way to a judge's decision. Over 1.5, or over 2.5, sorry, at minus 170 seems like the move to me. But again, it's another one where a guy like Dwight Grant, he's got that right hand. He can end this fight at any point in time. I just don't know that Kondoshko is the type of guy he's going to catch. So we'll say over, but again, no confidence there. This is a rough card, folks. Really rough card. Podcasters have their hands full this week trying to give you valuable betting information because there's not a lot. Jourdain Wright taking on Marc-André Barriault coming up in this next spot. Total again set at 1.5. The over minus 140, the under plus 120. And we see a lot of that number lately. It seems just to be the standard here to go ahead and have that lined at 1.5 that way. I'm going to say under. And again, that's just Jourdain Wright. That's the way Jourdain Wright fights. Like this guy, the Beverly Hills Ninja, he's got a ton of offensive power. I call him my favorite glass cannon. He will get anybody out of there in round one. He's fully capable. Now, Marc-André, he's a guy that you just don't finish. He got KO'd in the first round of his last fight. So shit happens. It's MMA. If Marc-André Barriault has his way, this thing is grinding itself up and over. But the defensive issues we've seen from Jourdain Wright, we can't rule out a Marc-André Barriault finish. That's one of those things where you're always expecting Marc-André by decision, but he's fighting a guy with zero defensive capabilities, so there's a very good chance that even if Marc-André is the one winning, this thing goes under. So I kind of like the violence here at under 1.5. Charles Jourdain taking on Lando Vannata in our next fight here. We have got a 2.5 minus 185 to the over. Under 2.5 is plus 150, and I really agree with that over. You know, one thing is Vannata's got that wrestling in his back pocket. We've seen that be a problem for Jourdain. Both these guys are tough and durable. Both of them are very exciting strikers, and both of them have shown that they're more than willing to be in a brawl, and neither of them seem to have any issues doing it. I don't see a finish in this fight. I mean, with these kinds of caliber strikers, obviously it's totally possible, but I think we get a 15-minute kickboxing match, and especially if Lando Vannata does decide to go ahead and come out here and grapple, then he's just going to grind minutes away on the clock. I don't think Vannata has the submission upside that it's going to take to put away somebody like Charles Jourdain, but he can definitely drain that gas tank. He can definitely slow the pace down. He can definitely tire the kid out. There is a lot of chance for this thing to go over minus 185, over 2.5. Would be the move for me there. Now, Alexander Romanov, Chase Sherman. This is a brand new put-together fight for this card. Chase Sherman saving his UFC career here, getting the call to go ahead and come in here against Alexander Romanov. And Romanov's biggest favorite on the card. I mean, just run away. Everybody understands what's going to happen here in this fight. The total has to be set at 1.5, but right now it doesn't look like we have any numbers. Let me see if any alternate books have numbers up. Okay, so there is an alternate number out there, a different book, one we won't talk about. Total set at 1.5, and it does look like minus 280 to the under 1.5. The over 1.5 is plus 220, and I mean, I need to look more into Chase Sherman. It's been a while since I've really dug deep in on him. We know he likes to plod forward. He's heavy. He can throw 100 significant strikes in a fight, but he's mostly a punching bag. When he does it, he has a hard time landing after the first 7 minutes or so of a fight. Alexander Romanov, he doesn't like getting hit. He doesn't like the leg kicks, and those are two things that Chase Sherman does very, very well. So Chase Sherman has an outside shot in this fight, a very outside shot, but an outside shot nonetheless. Romanov, however, usually takes people down and dusts them in the first. Chase Sherman's got a 70% takedown defense rating. Now, I need to go back. I need to do my homework and see if he's got any chance of stuffing the takedowns of Romanov. My gut says no, and if he can't stuff the takedowns of Romanov, then this thing probably goes under 1.5. Romanov does what he does, gets his back, chokes him out, that kind of a situation. But if Chase survives round one, he's not a guy that you can count on later in the fight, obviously, because he's got bad gas tank issues himself. But if for whatever reason he survives round one, we have seen Alexander Romanov have issues the later the fight goes. So yeah, you can see this thing definitely squeezing over that 1.5. I don't know. I'm going to say under 1.5, definitely not touching it. Maycee Barber taking on Montana De La Rosa up next. Women's MMA spot here. Total set at 2.5. The over minus 240. The under is plus 210 for a 2.5 spot. And yeah, I mean, there's actually some finish upside for both women here, believe it or not. Maycee Barber, it's been a while since we've seen her do her thing, but she is just an athletic specimen. She's strong, she's a bully, she's fast, she's explosive. She can hurt some women on the feet, and if she gets in dominant top position on the mat, she can hurt some people ground and pound style as well. Montana De La Rosa, on the flip side, she really relies on that grappling. Her stand-up game is not good whatsoever, but when she gets you down, she has some strong jiu-jitsu, solid ground and pound, and she is nasty on the floor. This is a spot where if Montana De La Rosa has some control time on Barber, she could probably get this thing done. Barber, on the flip side, can rock Rosa, club and sub her, knock her out TKO on the ground after she gets hurt. Those things are all definitely on the table. And we've also seen Maycee Barber, when she does get taken down, she gives her back up standing. So when she tries to get back up to the feet, De La Rosa's got a sweet little rear naked choke on her. Both women could finish. I'm trying to kind of talk myself into this under 2.5 here, but at the end of the day, I do kind of see Maycee Barber maybe landing a TKO spot here. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say under 2.5 at plus 210. I think something crazy is going to happen in that fight. Co-main event here, Clay Guida taking on Claudio Puelles. Total set at 2.5. The over minus 190. The under is plus 170. And again, this one is one of those binary fights, right? If Clay Guida's winning this fight, it's mostly through grappling. This thing is going over. If Claudio Puelles is winning this fight, it's because he's got that long, rangy kicking game, and he probably head kicks Clay Guida's noggin off, or he's able to snatch up a guillotine when Clay changes levels and goes in for a takedown. So if you're thinking under, you're probably thinking Claudio. If you're thinking over, you're probably thinking Clay. Personally, I'm in the Clay Guida camp. I do think he does what he does and wrestles his way to a victory here, even though Claudio is a guy that he's young, he's a little green. We've seen Clay Guida do some stuff lately. He got a submission win in his last fight. Claudio doesn't gas out quite that hard. I expect if Clay's in the driver's seat, this thing's going over. So I'll say over 2.5 minus 190. And main event time, folks. Total set for the main event at 3.5. Your rare 3.5 total for this one. Over 3.5 is plus 105. Under 3.5 is minus 135. And again, I just kind of agree with the violence. Jéssica Andrade, she's the third ranked flyweight in the world, and for good reason. She's got that crazy slam knockout win over the champion. We've seen she just marauds forward, just absolutely destroys people with her physicality in this division. Amanda Lemos, she seemed like she was kind of the new Andrade on the block recently. She's been kind of tearing through the division. You've heard it time and time again on every podcast done this week, though. She lost to Angela Hill, and that's a bit of a problem. She got taken down by Angela Hill. That's a bit of a problem. So maybe she can counter Jéssica Andrade coming in. You know, maybe if she decides to play the counter striker instead of getting into a brawl with Andrade, like, she's got the power that she can end the fight literally at any point in time. Any lesser woman than Angela Hill would have been knocked out dead in that first round of their fight. So Lemos can stop Andrade. We've seen Andrade knocked out and hurt before. It's happened, believe it or not. And Andrade can take over and wreck Lemos if she has time in this fight. So I do kind of see this thing escalating. And if Andrade is in the driver's seat, I don't see her grinding out a decision win. She probably breaks Lemos at some point and puts her down. I know it's women's MMA. I know it's 115 pounds, but the way these two hit, I do think it's going under. So I'll say under 3.5 at -135 is the call there for me. That's the total takedown, folks. Be careful this week. Be super careful betting this week. This card is so sketchy on all spots. So good luck out there. I hope you make piles of cash, but just be careful where you're putting your money on this one. Good luck, everybody. See you tomorrow for the undefeated post weigh-in show, and let's roll.